Okay, we're holding now Eis Vav. So yesterday we explained why the Rambam, first of all, how the Rambam knew that the konim were straight and not as the eagle, not round, and also why the Gevim were upside down. If everything in Yiddishkeit has to be the way we make a mitzvah, we do a mitzvah, it has to be derech d'lasan. So why would the Gevim, and the Rambam drew 22 Gevim, why would it be upside down? And the Rebbe explained so beautifully that the idea of the menorah is, the idea of the Beis Hamikdash is that it should give light to the world, and that's also the idea of the menorah, that it should spread light to the world. So the Gevim were upside down to bring out this point of it's being mashpia to things which are lower than it. That's where we started yesterday. So now the Rebbe says, Al-Pia now, kemen ich masber sein, but with this Adam, that emes v'limu was the Gevim zijn given dafke pien, rochav u'shulei kasser. We could explain, and I'll this Adam, why the mouths of the Gevim, or the goblets, so the mouths were wide, but their base were very short. Very narrow, I should say. Since the goblets are alluding to the idea of it's watering and it's irrigating, so it's understood that it needs to have, if it's being mashku marba, it needs to have a big opening. And es kommt zum Beispiel sein, if it's waiting, or the Kolel is zu vernehmen sich mit der Aveda. Von Lasisle is part of Gibber it is to the whole Be'elam. So when it comes to being mashpia of another person, and to being involved with making a dir b'tachtenim, darf das getan werden mit der größte Rachwas. So you have to do it with the greatest abundance. Bis l'mayla midid v'agbola, till even higher than midid v'agbola. Darf makabel sein sich annehmen mit die größte keches. First, it has to be makabel with to be mashpia with the greatest power. Piv the rachvelchen is makabel teche is rachav. So the first thing is the reason why the Gevim. What does it mean? The Gevim was a per rachav. What does that mean? That means in Avedis Adam, since the idea is to be mashpia, the idea of a Gevim is to be mashpia. So the hashpa, the mashpia has to be done with the gresta keches. Even es redt sich wegen sich allein, when halt go mit chilas aveda, oder viele später over sein aveda is basically sibishti and aveda milkbelas is ein matzu piv l'mayla. So when it speaks about himself beginning of the aveda, so for whatever reason the aveda is limited, so in sein matzu is piv l'mayla. However, when it's a kump to the Aveda from Tomet Atzveitin, however, when it comes to doing the Aveda with a second person or frat, so the Aveda from Machen die Welt for the dearly is border was in this, and you have to know as da muss sein Lamala Magbolas. When a person is being mashpia on another person, he has to know that the way that he has to be mashpia is higher than any limitations. Right? The Rochav Klape Makal Meno Hamata. I don't have to get at Amol Barucha, that in the Chilik zwischen the Trumas Adanu and Trumas Ashkal and Trumas Mishkin. It's like we explained Barucha, the difference between Trumas Adanim, Trumas Ashkal and Trumas Mishkin. As we know, there's different types of Trumas in the Beis Hamikdash. So there's you have the sockets, which is the half shekel, and you have the. Okay, the Rebbe is going to go into Banichas, which one, but it says like this: Trumas Adanim Ashkal was given by Granus Adam Masim Kesav Matzah Shekel. So when it came to the idea of the donations of the sockets and the half shekels, they were restricted to like discrete articles, like silver half shekel coins. Shengen Trumas HaMishkan, So when it came to Trumas Adanim and the Shkolim, that was very limited. It had to be money and a half a shekel. Mashayim Trumas HaMishkin, hat sich gegenüber alle Sugya Bria, Devim, Semeach, and Chai, with Sidif Ishi, Devenu Libe, whatever. When it came to the donations of the Mishkan, so that comprised of all categories of creations. You had the inanimate, the vegetative growth, the animal life. And each one gave according to how his heart motivated him, which is a human being. Why? If there are Avedas is considered Aveda Musaderes, unable from Vedani, again, Vedagna Echo Lasheni. Because the donations of the sockets, and let's say the half shekels, they symbolize, as the idea of the sockets that's on the bottom, the start of a Yid's Aveda. Regular Aveda must follow a set order. It begins with saying Vedani, and then a person climbs from level to level. Schengen, Terumah HaMishkan ben Avos if the Kolel Savida von Nasa is like Mikdash for Shakata Besich and Dirib Datilim was in there was at talking as well as the Nemtadum calling an Elam. However, when it comes to the donation for the Mishkan, they symbolize the general Aveda making a deer for Hashem's presence, a deer in this world. So in this service, there's no limitation. It comprises all elements of the world. So we said above, we said the an Aveda, the goblets are openings, which we know were wide, and their base were narrow. So we explained that the idea of the goblet alludes to irrigating and providing. So now we understand why the mouths were wide, because when influencing a Yid in Aveda, to make a Dirim B'Tachtenim, the person requires the greatest abundance until he transcends all boundaries and limitations. He has to accept to engage with the greatest powers. That's where the mouth, through which the cup receives into it, has to be wide, because the hashpah has to be, when you're mashpia on somebody, has to be with the gresta kechus. So, if we're discussing Aveda, a person's focusing on the person himself. When the Aveda is at the beginning of the Aveda, even later, so then his position is that the mouth of a cup is facing upwards. However, when it comes to the Aveda of interacting with another Yid, being mashpia, that has to be on the greatest hashpah. So that's why the mouth was very, very wide. And that's what we said also. That's why when you had the different types of trumas, so the trumas Adanim Ashkalim, they were more restricted because they refer to the start of the Aveda of a person. The other ones, the last one, the Trumas HaMishkan, that refers to the general Aveda. So the general Aveda in the base of English has to be on Agbalas. Zayin. And thus is the remedies, and then was Afapias Kol HaMitzvahs dar.
That was also split between the Teva's windows and the Mishkan. I mean, the base of English, the Mishkan would go out. That used to go out and not go.
Yeah, so that's what he said yesterday, that not only Mishkan, all windows are the way it is. It's narrow in the front and in the opening, and then it's wide in the actual house, because we're trying to bring in light from the outside. Shaking the Mishnah was the exact, or the Beis HaMikdash was the exact opposite, because the idea of the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash is it should bring hashpah outside. So not only in the Teva, all windows. Okay, Zayin. And thus is the Remes, and then was Afapi as called Mitzvah start in Ton Derech Dilos and Dafke. Es wird gebracht legabe Nobgeleitet von Lulav Viminov, Afapi King, said the Givim Shabbahamanida Hepech Dilos. So now we're going to answer, why is it that even though all mitzvahs need to be performed specifically in the manner of their growth, and as we learned in regards to the Lulav and the Dal Minim, nevertheless, the goblets of the Menorah were positioned in a reverse in the manner of their growth. Why is that? Jeder Mitzvah fragt Lulav Minim was eine Medugmas ganz Seder Shtachlis. Dafür sei Becholis Seder B'Shtachlis der Filassen. Every mitzvah and the Dal Minim, they correspond to the idea of the creation of the world. Seder Shtachlis. Therefore, they generally need to be in order and regulated in the manner of their growth. As far as the Seder Akiyah and mitzvahs, and unafim from there for the lesson. Therefore, the way that you fulfill the mitzvah is in a way that it follows the manner of their growth. The goblets themselves were fashioned so that their base are narrow and their mouths, the opening, is very wide. That is even over tail from their meneda miksha. Was there in meneda's miksha marvel the shuffle? Meneda's and bechutz. Es ist verbunden mit Mishana sein Tiber de Gulossi. Der Verreisung von sich, und mehr sein die Kalenis, Basin an Reifen von Schkufen Batovim, und die Gerim Piem de Matem Shalem de Milo. Hebach der Dechte lassen. Und seine Wede war Sport Mata is von a Per Rocho de Milo within the Wagwala. So the goblets themselves were fashioned in a way that their base are narrow and the mouths are wide. However, when they are part of the menorah, they become beaten with their function, which we know the function of the menorah is to provide and irrigate the lowly, to illuminate outside. So they're associated with a person transforming his nature and his behavior. He has to go out of himself, which that's the idea of the windows of the house, which we know are wide and narrow. And the goblets, the mouths are downwards and bases upwards. The reverse, why? And as Aveda is to influence, the below comes from wide. In other words, that the mouth that transcends limitation and definition. Ches. Es ist voran noch a Prat in dem Tzir now for the Meneda Shebeguf Ksav Yad HaRambam, was is anders from the Tzir Maragilo Shebeneda. There's also an additional detail in the Rambam's handwritten, hand-drawn illustration of the Meneda it's very unusual to the other depictions. As the Shisha Kanem Meneda ziehen sich a Ruf von dem Kanem Tzoi and a gleichen Alachsen. Nicht wie die Tziude Meneda Regilim, as they ziehen sich a Ruf wie Chatzi Keshes. Now, he says like this. First, until now, we're discussing the Gviyim. Now that I was saying is you find the handwritten illustration of the Meneda that the 6 branches of the menorah extended from the center shaft, we know it was diagonally, it was straight lines, unlike the regular illustration of the menorah, which they extend in a semicircle. When Afalpi has been get them prat, well, the Efsher B'deichel Chachi Godel given on earth, to Zogan as the Rambam, there's him a the Hokal Alatzir. Now, even though this detail you could say that the Rambam depicted in this way for the sake of ease of when illustrating. State of Beferish and Peter should above Ram, but Rambam, however, the Rambam's son was his name was Avram, so he is many Svarim. He's known as Avram and Rambam as a Shishi Kanim Nimshacha Bigufish Munir the Tzad Reisha Be Yesher. Commissioner Esav Yimarizal, Lebe Eagle, Commissioner Esizulasi. So the Rambam's son writes explicitly that the 6 branches extend upwards from the center shaft of the menorah in straight lines. And he says, as depicted by my father, Olav Shalom, and not in semicircles as depicted by others. As I state in Pirush Rashi and Latera, as the Shishi Karamah Laks and Ushach. And this is the way the Rambam, the Rashi says clearly in the Torah, that they were diagonally extending upwards. There is as the Terumah Regilum Shalom need to be Das Rashi, need to be the Rambam Zemitzaygan. So it comes out that the way that the usual sketches, the Velt, the way that they draw the menorah, yes, it might be a menorah, but this is not the Shittas Rashi and the Rambam was a menorah, how it was in the base of Mikdash. And this is the famous Shita of the Rebbe's menorah. It's not just the Rebbe's menorah, it's the way that the Rebbe learns the Rambam, learns Rashi, how they understood the menorah. So it's straight. It's not in a semicircle. Tess. Okay, so now that I was going to go.
And mit das Rashi, mit das Rambam, Rambam sagt dann Balasse.
Correct. So the what's a laksan? A laksan is straight, diagonally. So so people want to say the Velt people want to say that even in the Rambam that it wasn't medayik. The Rambam also meant with some circle. The Rebbe says clearly. You see in the Avram and Rambam, you see clearly that he says that it was a lafsin, and Rashi learns the same thing that the konem was balafsin. It was diagonal. It was straight. It was a straight konem. Okay, so let's see now. That's the Rebbe gets into tests. Now the Baal Mishnah's Chassidim, the Sifrei Ma'aseh Cheshav Amlachas HaMishkan Shaiber Pashtus as the Shishi konem and Gwen Rishochem Beigel. Now, the author of the Mishnah's Chassidim in the book of Ma'aseh Cheshav, which discusses the work of the Mishkan, writes clearly that the 6 branches extended circularly, that they were a circle. That's what the Mishnah's Chassidim says. One errors mevaris alpha pias from Rashi's book has lehi beagle. He explains that even though from Rashi's commentary they were not circular, about Rambam b'chiburli iskir tevus alafsin elakosav edim shacham ve'elim. The Rambam, however, does not use the term diagonal, but writes simply that they extended upwards. Breakbuster Bal Chachmas HaMishkan schreibt, as von dem is nieder she'oilim ba'konim kimat be'igel, and therefore he cites the author of the Chachmas HaMishkan that the branches rose somewhat circularly. She'oilim ba'konim kimat be'igel. Under Ma'aseh Cheshav is Messiahim, v'achem mistaber the b'achim dem l'galgali ha'rekia chodi shiginegdem heim ashivaners. And he concludes and he says that it makes a lot of sense that they rose somewhat circular, and it's more reasonable because they refer to different things. Ruchnius, the Rebbe says, "Our Lafinias daiti." This is the Rebbe says, and you see the Lashenis over here. The Rebbe says, "Lafinias daiti v'balder ma'asechesh shtaib feidish as zayin yisei to learn as the shochem bigels from stimbas lashon ram b'chiboni lehiskir tebus alazin." What does he write? I'm concluding that the Rambam is saying that the reason why it's like this is from the vague words that the Rambam says that Lehiskir was a lachsin. Doesn't mention that it was straight. And he uses very vague words. The Rambam doesn't use this word. The Rambam is using that. In other words, he says that even though Rashi doesn't say this, but the Rambam will come out that he also uses that it was circular, and he uses it from different because he doesn't write straight. Doesn't say clearly that it was balaksin. So the Rebbe says like this: is Ober.
That's what he's learning.
Yeah. So and the Rebbe completely disagrees with that. The Rebbe says is Ober. And he says after we saw it was a Ksav Yad Kedesh, and the Rambam writes in his that he drew it and they found it. The Rebbe says this whole thing, that the whole Welt is decided that this is how the Rambam learns the Menera. Rebbe says this bottle. You say the bottle opinion. The whole foundation is bottle. Why? Because if you look in the Guf Ksav Kedesh of the Rambam and the Rambam's son, not the Rambam writes. The Rambam draws mamish that it was a laksin, and his own son says also is b'yesher. And the Rebbe uses a lashon which I don't.
So positive. Maybe it's just so positive by the Rambam that he didn't have to write the word Alasan because he wouldn't have, he didn't even think that it was round.
Yeah, but look in Order 41. This is stark. Ubechlal is a chisi that finance daiti love and klal alai the mistayim kanal nidashe kemat beagle. Rebbe says I don't understand what in the world they're talking. That they're saying that it was circle. Shari Tevis Kana Muvur Bekama became his Beterish Beksav, Bekama became his Murchushu Kav Yesher. Yosher, but they will associate that is at the Afpam Echosh Muchash Sebefinaka. The Rebbe says that what does Kana mean? What does the word Kana? Kana means straight. The Rebbe says I don't find one place in Torah a Kana will mean something else besides for straight. And as the Rebbe uses a lashon over here, let's go back in the Pnim. The Rebbe says Umechilas Kveidai. I never saw this lashon in Likkutei Sichos. at least in the opinion. The Rebbe says with all.
If anything, it's more hard to understand that it should be more of an eagle than it should be straight.
Correct. Correct.
Everything else to show that it's straight, because there's a cow, there's a picture. There's nothing that even shows that it should be.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the Rebbe says, need a butter with all due respect. As either my Sichah of Balchofmas and Mishkan wollten gesenden Tzir and Amam, or the Pirs von Avram and Avram ben Avram and Amam, but ich sehe die Stimme, as in the talking plugs of Azel. Kula Almas are the Konig Ben Beyesh. The Rebbe says, it's my humble opinion that had the Ma'aseh Cheshev and the author of the Chofmas and Mishkan see the illustration and commentary of Avram and Amam, they too would have written no arguments and they would say that it was straight. The Rebbe schreibt as Harber Besvarim and Shinim Zal the Yotzel the Earth was the time Mechir Zal was his father in this miracle. The Rebbe writes that many of the text authored by the Rishonim were not yet published in the Eretz Achreinim, and one should not rely on them. The Rebbe says, "Vayter v'im kinem advarim is manochel lahachzatzar liyeshtanah." The Rebbe says straight. If it's true what I'm saying, that it's proper to renew our efforts as it was in regards to old. As the Allah v'chamachin shurim for the meneder b'chtei shalana v'sis given the eisen. Anyone who's making these pictures, so besides and say it the way it is. Don't make up how the manera was. That's Rashi, which is true. The Rebbe says that the truth is nobody's arguing how they would have seen the tzir. There said the meistes chinuch. Zer gilyanis blanken. Them tzir habanera. And like this is with the educational institutions, they make the logos on their letterhead, the letterhead stationery, and they include the illustration with the branches as a semicircle. It's about the Matarov and the Metziers who didn't. Als der Mandung, if the Benedish Mishkan Migdash is Kedai, Viesas, and is all Meshana Zain, the Metzier, and Metzier Zain, the Karam Balachsen. And the Rebbe says, and since the purpose of the illustration is to act as a reminder of the Menorah and the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, it would be more than appropriate to change the illustration and depict the branches diagonally. Now, the Rebbe says, and this is where our Menorahs come in. If you look in Order 44, the Rebbe says that also by the Menorah, the Chanukiah, which resembles the Menorah of the Beis HaMikdash, also it's kedai to make it also straight. Huh?
It's not absurd or better?
Yeah, it's not absurd, but kedai, exactly. Hey. I think what he's saying is, like, with dark design, yes, we should have a lachsim, but with dark design, I guess somebody doesn't want to let the facts confuse them. We don't have to be a kanoi about it. But you see it. The Rebbe says that it's just that in the Beis HaMikdash, that's how it was. And what happened? And what happened is the reason why. Where does the mistake come from? Comes from the Arch of Titus. Is when Titus now took the Kolel of the Beis HaMikdash and he brought it to Rome. So he thought that he stole the Beis HaMikdash's Menorah. And the Kolel was nothing to do with the Beis HaMikdash's Menorah. So he and that if you go to the Arch of Titus, I was there a few months ago. If you go there, you see how you just see it's like a clear, vivid picture how the Menorah was, and that's from that. People were saying, "Oh, you see the fact that Titus is there must be that's the Menorah was." So the Rebbe says it's very, very off, and Michal wasn't. That whatever he stole. Where he's trying to depict the Bezos was not the Menorah was not the Menorah.
There were many guys.
Exactly. There was candelabras or whatever, but this was not how the Beis HaMikdash's Menorah looked. Okay, let's finish up. Is Vibald? Is Vibald the Matarov and the Messias who didn't als the morning if the Menorah Mikdash, that Rebbe says is all Mashanas and Mitzir and the Karabal Lasses. So the Rebbe says it's kedai that the illustration depict the branches diagonally. Yadalf. Dabei kommt dort zu noch ein Ding. Es kommt ein additional idea. It's here dog of the Meneda as the Sichah Sakanim sagen with the Chatzi Keshes, Sapir Shara, and noch Meneging for the Meneda was, okay, this is what I was saying. Was nicht jeden haben Bezeig geweber Romi, und auf dem die Sachen Arke, dem Shar Nitzachen von Titus Simach Shemay. Now, the common image of the Meneda with the 6 branches, the semicircles, is presumably a copy of the Meneda from the Goyim in Rome, which is the Arch of Titus, the victory of Titus, Yimach Shemay. When Titus Arosh hat Chorov gemacht, and basically Midrash hat geheißen, wegnehmen der Kli HaMishkan, der Rebbe says es klar, und sie bringen kein Reim. Und der Chweide von dem Rosh hat mit dem Reim gebet, Ashar Nitzachen, was tragt sein Namen. Sei Titus. Auf dem Schar hat man gezeigt, wie man tragt die Gefangenen Kli HaMishkan, und besechen der Meneda, und dem Zier von der Meneda, if in Shai Titus, and the Sheshe Sakana, wie Chatzi Keshes. Now, so Titus HaRosh destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and he instructed that the Kolel of the Beis HaMikdash should be brought to Rome, and in the honor of Titus HaRosh, they constructed the victory arch in Rome that carries his name, and the arch of Titus. On this arch, they created different depictions of the Kolel of the Beis HaMikdash, and they had captured transporting, including the Menera. And this image of the Menera is the arch of Titus. There's 6 branches, and there are semicircles. What's nice about them, as the Tzir Menera of Shai Titus is Klalit Meduyik. Aside from the fact that the image of the Menera of the Arch of Titus is not accurate at all, is das getan geworden geworden, kann ich zur bringen die Schlita und Herrschaft für Reim über jeden Rechwalstan. It was brought out, and it was made in order to bring the downfall of the Yidden. It was invented to depict the dominance or rule of Rome over the Yidden. Business models dort euch ausgekürzt. Bekam ist die Wörter da Kaptia Juden ist gefangen. Und es sei gewähnt, wenn man vielleicht machlich sein Jiden zu kommen zu dem Schar, es soll sein, statt es geschrieben und gezeichnet, wird zu erniedrigen Cholim. So the over there it was invented entirely to depict the downfall of the Yidden, and we see over there it's written Yidden were defeated and are engraved. There were periods in history in which the Yidden were forced to come to the arch to see all that was inscribed and depicted thereby. Okay, we'll stop there. We'll continue tomorrow. It's a little bit more, but it's the meeting starting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. Kommt as das Messiah on the Kolel wie Chatzi Keshes, is it was Messiah if the Shartitis darf rufen I Gewalt Yishrei. Eise begamse Iker was das es habe Klash übernommen. Ich weil das geht a gewisse Heskim Chudi Chachashom Rachman Sans in Syria für Shartitis was es gemacht wird, geht zu Messiah sein jeden und sie niederkriegen machen. So this design of the Meneda should remind and arouse all Yidden. So it comes out that the depiction of the Menera should call a great cry. In addition to the main point of the depiction that conflicts the opinion of Rashi and the Rambam, is for a certain extent a confirmation, God forbid, the image of Shartitis, which was created to hurt Yidden and degrade them. Tomorrow was a tzir von der Menera der Mann in the Meir seiner Iden als ein Tafkid is zu sein Leir game. Is the Chobei Elam schon der Fair Bistal. But die Tzir zum Ner gemacht bei Even Gazel was der Mann of Hepech Mamish wie Reim hat la sagen when the Yidden upon the sun. So the design of the Menera should remind and arouse a Yid about his role to serve the light of the nations. It's a testimony to all the inhabitants of the world. The divine presence rests upon Yid, and instead the Menera depicted in a way that calls to mind the exact opposite. Rome was victorious over Yid, and God forbid. And in Beis Hamikdash Hashtishim alle wel zijn wie de Menera zet is. Om Meshav aan de Waim en we dat zebben in Basse, we zeggen in Nov, en Kima Tzir Dabra iron, sin the Menera, Kushatim Babash of Heaven and Malish. So may be the will of Hashem that the true and ultimate redemption to come very soon. That you're going to see Mashiach, the third base of Migdash, and see how the Menera looks. I'll be together with Moshe and Aaron, and we'll see the physical eyes, fulfillment to speak to Aaron when you light up the lamps, the kindling of the Menera in actuality and speedily in our days, Malish.